You're listening to
They're gonna call it a hard foul. They're gonna call it a hard foul.
All right, Mike, I think this now qualifies. We're in a new season. This is now officially a sixth season of Hot Foul. So congrats to us on that. I know the NBA season isn't over, but Celtics basketball in that season is done. And I just want to start off by saying this. I feel more miserable about the Celtics
Oh,
today than I did when the season ended, as I think about this more, and for two reasons. This cap and the CBA is just so fucking stupid.
we got to
Um,
introduce the show, Jim.
Yeah, we are the hot foul. I thought I did by saying it's the sixth season. Brought to you by the what?
Fan First Sports Network, bitch. We had to do that.
Yeah, we got to do that sixth season hot foul. Fan First Sports Network, bitch. And so the CBA and Tatum's injury, and I'll get into all that. But that's how I'm feeling today, Mike. Not great about where this team is and how things are going, and it has less to do about them losing their playoff series. And more to do with the circumstances that they're now in, which um, I'm going to say something maybe a little controversial in a second about all that. But how are you?
Ooh, controversy on the pod.
Yeah.
Well, I'm good. Like we're ninth out of 15 Celtic podcasts around the country in our sixth season. So like we're fucking
According to
legit
some
over
random
here.
aggregator, we are, yes.
Yeah, like we're Celtic experts. You should be listening to us and not, any of these other assholes who pretend to know what they're talking about. Like we're the only ones who are really good, obviously, and like all the other Celtic podcasts is garbage. So just listen to us, and you'll get everything you need. Up to date stats, up to date material. Sometimes like 5 days late, but that's all right because we put a different spin on it than anybody else.
That's right.
And how I'm feeling, Jimmy. I mean, I think I'm feeling different than you. I'm
Okay.
what I was prepared for the off season outlook. I wasn't prepared for like
I wasn't
Jason
prepared for
Tatum.
this. No.
I wasn't prepared for Jason Tatum going down, but like I had like this idea in my head that the window was now. I think I've been saying on the pod all year, like they got to win this year because they're gonna have to give away players and get less back, and there's so many teams up and coming. So I was really disappointed with all the injuries. I am still disappointed with how they played against the Knicks. I am disappointed in how Jason Tatum played before he got hurt against New York. In the majority of that series. I think to your point about things look bleak. The NBA, you can even with the new CBA. Um, you see teams that are willing to spend money still like cash out their chips, trade for assets, and then a season later cash back in to bring players in and be competitive again. And I do think it looks crappy now, but Boston does have, if everybody stays, Brad Stevens and his team, I do have faith in them to make this a quick turnaround.
Well, I did until I started reading more into the CBA. And the CBA, it's worse than I realized. And so a lot of this has to do with what this new ownership is thinking. And I guess my mindset would have been you have this new ownership in here. And let's say the Celtics, same thing happens. They go to the Knicks, which would have happened even if Tatum stayed healthy. And, I would have eventually like been able to reckon with that because of Brown was obviously hurt. Holiday wasn't himself. Porzingis had his thing. And then you could look at this offseason and say, well, you have a new ownership group. Even if you like, let's say they remove Holiday and trade Hauser into space somewhere and they're below the second apron, you can say, well, Porzingis is worth more to them. If he's got a virus issue on an expiring deal than actually shipping him out. Maybe you tinker around the edges, and you definitely have a team that's favored to go to the Eastern Conference Finals next year. And once you're there, you got a shot with two great wings. If Brown got healthy again, two great wings, and you have potentially this rivalry brewing between OKC and the Celtics, and you can get yourself to a point, and it potentially really could have gotten there, that you could say, okay, maybe this window isn't completely shut. You know,
Yeah.
there's another season here. But what
Hmm.
happens now, Mike, with this new CBA? What I didn't realize. So if this new ownership group, and we don't know how they're thinking, but
Hmm.
if they're thinking like we eventually want to get out of this luxury tax, this repeater tax that we're in right now, so that doesn't mean you have to get out of the second apron. That means you need to get under both, not for one season, but for two in a row. And so, like your comment, well, you can go one season, get right back into it. No, if their goal is to get out of this repeater tax because they don't want to pay for a team that's not going to win a championship, which that's who the Celtics are right now. You got to do it for two seasons in a row. So it changes the
Hmm.
outlook completely on how they're going to do things. And this window is now, as you alluded to, is shut. And it's
Yeah.
shut because of this Tatum injury and this stupid CBA. And if you had one or the other, you can make an argument that it might not be shut anymore. Tatum comes back in a season, you rebuild around him, you have that old CBA, maybe you tinker around the edges, you make some moves, and you're right back in this thing. But this really complicates things, and there are other complications. There's uh, salary cap floors. So in past seasons where you could trade players into space, a lot easier. You only have one team that you can do that to with right now, the Nets, because everyone has to spend up or they get penalized during the season. So you don't
Hmm.
even have that like luxury that you would have under the other cap to try to shed salary. It makes things really difficult, and it puts you in such a bad place as an organization as you try to build for this. Now, maybe we're really lucky, and the ownership is saying, I don't care about paying the repeater tax. Just get out of the second apron so we don't have these basketball penalties. If that's the case, a team that, ownership that just spent $6 billion, then great. But I have a hard time believing that's the case when you have a venture capitalist come in and buy the team, and you have a venture capitalist group that you don't even know who's behind the money, dropping $1 billion, and you have a foreign investor as part of this new ownership team. Like, I'm skeptical of that. I think at the end of the day, they want to see some cash coming in. So, like, that's the big unknown. So we just sit here and we have to wonder. And then the Tatum's injury, it just derails it even further. And like, my controversial statement is this: I would trade the Celtics championship for the old CBA and Tatum to be healthy. So the best part of being a Celtics fan for me over the last 20 years is like, with the exception of 2 to 3 seasons, you could almost like benchmark them for the second round, and and even some seasons a lot better than that. The conference finals every year, you knew you were getting a lot of good basketball. I think we're now into a real gray area, especially next season, on how they're going to operate, what the team's going to look like, and then going forward. And to me, that sucks. That sucks. And eventually, the only good news as a Celtics fan is eventually the CBA is going to bite everyone in the ass. Eventually, SGA is going to get his supermax. Eventually, Jalen Williams is going to get his rookie max. And that's a team that doesn't spend a lot of money, so they're going to have to answer for that. The Cavs are going to have
Yeah.
to.
Ken Holmgren's gonna get paid.
And it's stupid because they've built things in a way that's very smart and should be sustainable for a long time. Talking about KC, the same way the Celtics did. They built it around two young wings that should be sustainable for a long time. And we're going to transition on this pod in a moment on what we would do as general managers. And like, I don't want to trade Jaylen Brown. Like, I want to get this off the top right now. I don't want to trade him. I don't want to break up this team. This team still has opportunities to go far every season as constituted. Um, but I think you're probably going to have to. So that's where I am.
Yeah. I wouldn't trade the championship away.
Yeah,
No way. No way. But
I just would, Mike. I like I like going into every season knowing that we got a lot to look forward to.
Yeah. Yeah, and we don't know yet what we're gonna be looking forward to this next offseason. Obviously Tatum's gonna be out,
That's a
but
good point. Yeah.
um well, Derek White and Jaylen Brown could still be here, and they could still, this ownership group could still spend a little bit. I don't know. If they don't, if that's the way they're going to operate, that would mean that every team in Boston, every team, every major market team here, um, is refusing to spend on their team.
Well, is it
Uh,
refusing to spend? And so, like, this is where you have to give some grace to them. Is it refusing to spend, or is it refusing to spend on a team that's not going to win a championship?
yeah, but you, you have to give your. I think it's refusing to spend because eventually Jason Tatum's going to come back. So if you're gonna worry about the second apron for 2 straight years, and you're not gonna build a team around Jason Tatum when he gets back, you're slapping a top 5 player in the NBA in the face to say, "Hey, we're not gonna compete with you on this team in your best years. We're gonna wait until we think we have a quality team to win a championship around." I don't know. I just don't like. I think if you're owning a team, you should be going after it all the time. You
Yeah,
know.
it's not the second apron then. If it's only the second apron, then we're in, like if that's all they're worried about, I think that's a really good indicator on what type of owners they're going to be,
Yeah.
which is positive. It's if you see them get below both aprons, I think as a fan you need to like put yourself in a place where it's going to be 2 straight years. I think they're going to be below that, and we're having a reset. And the same way the Clippers are doing out in LA right now.
Yeah, I think that would be really disappointing. I don't think that's a good idea. Um, I mean, I don't think trading Jaylen Brown is a good idea. I can't be convinced of it. Um, and we'll talk about that, on this pod. I know that people are saying that this is a chance to cash in for him and to get out of that contract, and with Jason Tatum out, you know, but Jaylen Brown isn't gonna. His talent's not going to diminish that much over the next 4 seasons. There's no evidence of that. There's guys playing late into
Mhm.
their 30s now, and he was just NBA Finals MVP. He didn't play well in this playoff run because of an injury. And from all I'm hearing, it's not an injury that's going to be really hard to come back from. So I don't understand the rush to trade him other than saving money. Because when him and Tatum are on the floor together, you move Derek White, you move Sam Hauser, you move Drew Holiday, you move Kristaps Porzingis, fine. You still have Brown and Tatum. You got a shot. You can put players around them and go compete. Um, and I don't understand the logic in trading Jaylen Brown. I can't be convinced of it. I also can't be convinced, even though we see good players around the NBA move all the time, that there's going to be a better player available than Jaylen Brown 3 or 4 years from now. That's how much faith I have in him as a player. Um, I know a lot of fans around here in Boston don't, but do I need to remind them who shut down Luka Doncic in the championship last year? Do I need to remind them who saved us in games 1 and 2 against Indiana in the Eastern Conference Finals last year? Like, we're a year away from that performance when he was healthy. And we were ramping up for that performance. And I was saying it on the pod that this playoff run was going to be the Jaylen Brown playoff run again, but he got hurt. Um, we give Tatum grace for his injuries all the time. All the time. We go back to the Golden State series and we talk about his wrist injury. We go back to Game 7 against Miami. We talk about his injury. But whenever it comes to Jaylen Brown and playing poor, nobody he gets no excuses in this town. And people are really quick to move him out the door. I'd be extremely disappointed, and it would take a lot for me to agree with it. And also, when I play around on the trade machines, it's really hard to trade him and get value back. But we can talk about that. But that's where I stand. I don't think I can be convinced otherwise that it'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I don't think it would. If I think if you put him out on the market, trade machines be damned. You would get Godfather offers that would come back to you. But it's a question. So I think of all things being equal, you were getting the same Tatum and you were getting the same Brown when Tatum comes back. Um, I think everything you say makes sense. What we don't know is if we're gonna Tatum you can't trade, not just because he's 1A. No, you're gonna the value you get back for him right now is the worst it would ever be. So
No.
just as a pure
Yeah,
value
of course.
standpoint, you can't move him. But you don't know what he's going to be. Like that's the reality of the Celtics situation here right now is you do not you're hopeful at 27. There's reasons to be hopeful. He's a young guy. Other guys have, Durant's a good example, and Tatum's younger than him in great shape. All those things. The style of game that he plays, kind of he might be okay, but is he going to be the Iron Man that he has been? Is he going to be the same guy? And now you have Brown with his meniscus, which I know not the end of the world, but it's also pretty common when guys at this point in their career start to get these types of injuries that they build up. You got to look at it as a circumstance that they're in, not past performance or how people may feel around town about Jaylen Brown, and that's not how I'm operating. Am
No, I know
I
you're
guess
not.
I'm looking like, how do we rebuild this so this can be a long-standing contender under the restraints of the CBA and what I assume ownership's going to want? And maybe you're right that ownership would they'll be fine paying the repeater, and I think that changes everything on how you can build this with Brown. But there's not a lot of ways. If Brad Stevens has a mandate to get under the first apron, there isn't a lot of ways to do it that will keep you competitive and build towards the next championship without trading Brown. And
Well,
I think that's a hard reality here.
well, I'm ready to dive into the full blow up. I'm ready to dive in here. I got my trades ready that I texted you a while back up on my screen here. When you're ready to go, I'm ready. All
All
right,
right,
Ken.
Mike, I'm going
So,
to put this up on the screen here, but you go ahead. You start talking about what you want to do.
ignore all the second round picks. I was just playing around, but there's this cool website called Fanpo, I think, and it's different than Trade Machine because they allow you to include draft picks. So ESPN Trade Machine doesn't have that. And so I got my Drew Holiday trade here, which I'm sure this won't happen, but I was like, how do we make this
My
creative?
God, I'm getting an ice cream headache, Mike. I'm getting an ice cream
I
headache.
was like, how do I make this creative enough that Holiday and Giannis end up back together? And so what I did is I sent Giannis and Holiday to Cleveland.
Hmm.
Um, and they're gonna regroup there and go after another championship together while sending Darius Garland to Orlando, where that felt like a good fit for me. In Orlando, they need some scoring there. And Evan Mobley was sent to Milwaukee, and the Celtics got guys that they could either release right away, like a Wagner, and get under that 11 million.
Well, I
Um,
found out, so that's the other thing. I gave bad information because under the old CBA, you could do that. You can't do that anymore. You
oh,
can't
so
even
then
trade for him unless the team picks up the option.
this trade doesn't work. um, the Celtics were getting a first round draft pick back, and Cleveland was regrouping to go after the championship. And Milwaukee got a lot of picks for Giannis and Evan Mobley to kind of rebuild, and Orlando was able to continue to try to be a championship team with more scoring. So kind of worked out for everybody. But now you're telling me that this trade doesn't work. So
No.
and this might be the case for all the trades because I was operating under that assumption. Um,
Yeah, I gave bad info on that. Bad info.
so do you want to go to my Jaylen Brown to the Rockets trade?
Sure. So let me stop the share here and I'll pull up the other one. But I think on that one, the idea is, you know, there is possibilities you need to involve a bunch of teams to do shit.
Yeah,
So like, and even where that trade like that could work is if you plan on then trading Wagner
somewhere else.
immediately. Yeah,
Yeah,
and so like
and he's got value.
there has to be multiple iterations. I think a lot of times what the Celtics need to do, the obvious thing is maybe you ship someone off into the net space, but I think that there's going to be a lot of teams trying to do that. So that of course makes that, oh my God, this Rockets one. That
Yeah,
makes it.
but I mean, even like a guy like Wagner, though, like if I'm a contender and there's a way I could get him on my roster, I would be all for that.
Yeah, sure. And an expiring deal to a team is good that's contending because that's not going to affect you long term with the CBA.
Yeah.
All right.
So this next trade for the Celtics, anyways, was once again under the assumption that we'd be able to release
Yeah,
Van
but you
Fleet.
could trade. I think Van Fleet is one of those guys like that, and you have him involved in this trade. If he's going to the Celtics, maybe he has some value to the Pistons because he's not. I don't know where that would put them this year in the salary, but let's say that keeps him under the second apron still. He's a
Yeah,
guy that could have some value, or maybe not
moving.
the Pistons because Kate Cunningham, you want to have the ball, but still maybe they need more scoring there, or even like the Magic. Maybe that's a place where it could work. You could ship him off to afterwards.
Um, yeah, so I really tried to do this trade so the Celtics would get Thompson back in the deal, but there was no iteration where I could because you can't trade Brown with another player. And when Thompson was included and you have to match the salaries for Boston. Um, and when Thompson was included in any trade, it was putting the Celtics over, and the trade was illegal. And so I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make that work. I'm sure there's other people out there that could get Thompson back to the Celtics, but basically,
Yeah,
Boston would end up with a boatload of picks and a young player that I could figure out to make the salaries work was Washington had Koulibaly, who's on all accounts a good player, but he's certainly not in Thompson's range. And so that's how the deal worked out. It had to be a 14 deal with Murray and Brown going to the Rockets, the Wizards moving players to help the trade work, so getting draft picks back, and the Pelicans with the ability to get rid of Murray's salary and taking in a young player like Jabari Smith Jr. But really, the Celtics were doing this trade for 5 first-round picks for Jaylen Brown. That's what this really came out to.
yeah. I don't think the Celtics would do that. I think you need a real stud young player like Thompson coming back. There's always a way to do it. I know that this model may say no, but there's always a way to figure that out. Maybe it doesn't include Van Fleet. Maybe it includes like Smith coming to the Celtics and going somewhere else, or Dylan Brooks or whatever. But I think you'd want if you're trading Brown, I think the offers are going. Teams may come in at first and say we'll give you 4 first-round picks and an expiring to see if that's what this would get the Celtics to do that. I think you're looking for a really at least one potential all-star young player and then draft picks. Um,
Yeah, that's what you would
yeah,
need.
and I think teams would figure out how to do that. That especially like the Rockets are a great example because how do the Rockets under their iteration where they are now, how do they make that next step to be a championship team?
Yeah, obviously Jaylen Brown, and for me, I think me and you are in the same boat. Like
Yeah.
Thompson is the guy we would want back in that deal. Um, and I think what you're saying, and what I wasn't thinking is that the Celtics maybe they do match different salaries. Like it's like 4 or 5 players they're getting back, and the hope is that they're going to move those players too, because obviously this is a salary move, and they're trying to get under something. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. I think it would be a salary move. But I think it's also like you're not so if you decide that you're moving Brown, um, you're only doing it if you get a shitload back. Like it would help, it's gonna help with the salaries down the line. Maybe not for next season to be completely under the
but
uh
maybe the season afterwards.
the repeater tax, but the season after would put you in a position, and then there's other ways to get under it for this season. I think I know that they would be looking for an absolute haul, and my guess is there would be at least 2 teams out there competing for him, and so you would get that.
And one thing that's interesting about Houston is their draft picks. So I just want
Yeah, they got the
to.
Phoenix and a bunch of others, right?
Yeah, so they have Phoenix in 25 and 27. They also in 27 they have swap rights with Brooklyn,
Hmm.
and in 29 they have swap rights with Dallas and Phoenix. Um, you bring back those picks, you could be looking at 4 lottery picks, 4 top 10 picks in that trade. There's a possibility there. Obviously, 2031 first round pick. You have no idea what you're getting. And it's hard to trade for draft picks in the NBA because you can't trade picks 2 years in a row. And when you look around the league and where draft picks are, like Houston is the one team and maybe OKC, maybe Jaylen Brown fits into OKC, but Houston is like that one team where Brown fits in, and you can get back a boatload of picks that have value and have value early, meaning like right away. Like that 10th pick would be a great pick. The 27 first round pick would those 2 first round picks would be really good picks. So um, and he coaches in Houston. So there's just a lot there that makes a lot of sense. So we'll see what happens. And I feel like if it does happen, Jaylen Brown would probably be the first domino to fall, because the Celtics would want that pick right away in this year's draft.
Yeah, unless if they already have a deal ready for Holiday to kind of move. You know, you hear the Mark Stein rumor that's out there with Dallas, and I think Mark Stein's really good, and so he's been really good at kind of on these rumors in the past. So, and it would make some sense. PJ Washington comes here, then goes to Brooklyn, and you bring in Daniel Gafford. Holiday fills those minutes for Kyrie until Kyrie's back, and then they can play together. And all of a sudden, that Dallas team with Kyrie, Holiday, Cooper Flag, and AD, that's pretty goddamn good. That's pretty
Yeah, I
goddamn
mean,
good, you
I'm a
know.
little worried about Kyrie. Man, he's gotten hurt a lot in his career. If he comes back the same player, that would be pretty impressive.
The other thing about Houston that's different than OKC, and OKC put off bringing in any stars, and it makes sense because you don't want to speed up the clock on the CBA, is they don't have an SGA and they don't have a Jalen Williams that are like you budding offensive superstars. They have some guys that are really good, but in terms of playmakers and budding, so that you could wait that out. I don't think Houston has that option. And that's why another team that you would think for Brown might make sense almost right away would be, well, can you shoot him over to San Antonio and
When they get
maybe
the number 2 pick,
number
yeah.
two pick and like a guy like Vassell or somebody? But why, with a guy like Wembanyama, would you want to speed up your CBA?
I agree.
Like you almost like, let's grab this number two pick and let's build this together and build it slowly. Makes a lot of sense for them. Um, you know, so, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
we'll have to wait and see. So, all right, let's do this last share here, Mike. And this is one I hate, but because it's trading a guy I love. Hold on.
Yeah, I hate all of it except
Did
for
you see
Holiday.
it?
Yeah, I see it, and I'll say this, Jim. If I'm moving Jaylen Brown, I'm blowing the whole fucking thing up. That's where I'm at. I'm starting over. And I'm keeping Jayson Tatum, and I'm rebuilding. Like, what's the point of having Derek White when he's already 31? So if we're moving Jaylen Brown, I'm moving everybody.
Mm.
And so that's where this came from. In Golden State, there's been a lot of rumors that they want him. And so, I tried to do what you said to get 5 first round picks back for
Why
Derek.
is Charlotte giving up a pick in this?
They shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Were they giving up a first? Oh, you know
Yeah.
why? Because I couldn't find Golden State draft picks beyond.
Yeah.
So like this only goes
Charlotte's
up.
not doing this deal.
Yeah. You know what that's supposed to represent? That's supposed to represent like a Golden State 2033 draft pick, because this website doesn't allow you to go past 2031.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what that represents. That's the third first round pick. It's
Okay.
like um and those 2 second round picks are supposed to also be like future Golden State firsts, because I don't know, we'll see, but I would be looking to get like a Mikal Bridges type deal for White, 3 to 5 first round picks, and a young player, which the Celtics get, and a contract that they can get out of. Charlotte really makes the deal work money wise. They have to take back Buddy Hield, so they get a young player and a couple draft picks. In Golden State, they get the best backcourt in the NBA. Quite honestly, if this trade goes through and Steph is healthy, him and Derek White in the same backcourt. It's certainly not Klay Thompson, but he helps defensively. And, if they can find a big, maybe in the draft or something, they'd be right back in it, I think. I always give Steph a shot if he's got talent around him. So kind of makes sense. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you would for me to talk about Derek White, I'd have to be completely blown away because his contract is so good.
Hmm.
So when you're looking at rebuilding this thing, and he's basically under 30 or right around that number throughout, and he's worth way more than that. Um, if you're able to move other players, you can keep him and kind of see a path of how you build this team as him being a key component in it. And he's a winning player. He's paid less than he's worth, a lot less than he's worth. And I think that has a lot of value under the current CBA and also to a team that you want to rebuild. I think though you're trying to do the thing that makes sense. Like, how do we get to a spot when Tatum comes back that you can build this as a championship team? And maybe you get lucky in
I
the
think
draft.
after all three of these trades, the Celtics ended up with 9 or 10 first round picks.
Yeah, so like, and then you obviously can do a lot with that because otherwise, if you stay the same and you keep Jaylen Brown and it's Jayson Tatum and Derek White, and let's say ownership doesn't care about the repeater. And this is the other thing you have to think about. And I'm okay talking about this more because we're talking about it for basketball reasons outside of CBA reasons. Um, then you ask yourself, is that a team you can build a championship around anymore? Do you trust that Tatum's going to be the same guy? Do you trust that this meniscus is just a one-off and it isn't going to be like other guys who have meniscus injuries and it continues to build? Do you trust that Derek White is going to continue to be Derek White? So the one I trust the most is Derek White's going to continue to be Derek White. I think his game's going to age very well. Like, I don't think we're going to see him fall off a cliff at all. He's not a small guard. This way he plays, all those things, great athlete. A guy that has gotten considerably better throughout his career. Then the thing I'm second least concerned about is Jaylen Brown. Like, I think this meniscus won't be a big deal. I kind of hope, like, if he stays with the Celtics, that he decides to, if surgery will help him all, just go ahead and do it, and take some time off at the beginning of the year. No big deal. But the wild card in all this is obviously is Tatum,
Hmm.
and so you are going to need guys that are able to play a lot of games surrounding Tatum that are good players to really contend deep going forward. And so that begs the question of, do you change the core, which I think are those three guys. And but that's a basketball discussion, and like I go back and forth on that. When the season ended, I was like, oh yeah, we got to trade Brown. This injury is catastrophic. And now I kind of look at Tatum's age. As long as they don't try to bring him back too quick, I don't think he should play at all next year. I don't
Yeah.
care if it looks like he might be ready. I don't think Tatum should play at all. Like, just do what you got to do. Come back this next season. You got 4 years under your contract. We'll make this work. Um,
Yeah, they should give Brown surgery and have him sit out the whole year too, and go
but
after
we,
that kid from
but
BYU.
what we could see next year is Brown looks great, and then we decide not to trade because you don't necessarily have to trade him this season. So you could if this isn't a repeater tax thing, you could go through next year and see Brown looks great, and you want to build around Tatum, or maybe his value goes up and you're able to trade him. The risk is obviously the opposite happens. But maybe it's worth taking that risk because that's the biggest upside for the Celtics to contend to be a championship team, like you say. I think we're just all waiting with bated breath right now, and we're going to figure out pretty early in this offseason on what this ownership mandate is, um,
Yeah.
on what's going to happen. And if it looks like they're getting under both aprons, which the discussion's going to be that they'll be back making moves the following off season, and that's not true. If they get under the first apron, it's 2 seasons they're going to be under the first apron. So
Mhm.
they reset this thing because otherwise there's no point. So it's going to be 2 seasons so they can reset this thing. And it's going to suck a little bit. And now there's ways maybe they can do it. You like there's a lot of iterations of Holiday going out to Dallas, Porzingis going into the space in Brooklyn. But why would Brooklyn do that? They're the only team with space. A lot of teams are going to be looking to shed money. They're probably going to get assets to get a
Yeah.
player into their space. So how much are the Celtics willing to give up? You certainly don't want to give up the 2026 pick when there's a chance you could suck, and the lottery's players are going to be really good next year. So you don't want to do that. Um, and then maybe Hauser goes into someone mid-level exception. Maybe Brad gets really smart and creative, and he trades before the new league year, and teams have more exceptions that they can take salary into now before the new league year starts at whatever July 4th or 5th or whatever it is. Um, and that's why in draft day sometimes you're wondering, is this a trade that's happening during this league year or is it next league year?
Yeah.
And so like and if those dominoes all fall and they're able to get under the first apron doing it that way, great. But you also then have to find ways to get under the first apron the following season when both Tatum's and Brown's contracts continue to go up. So it's like this is what I mean. It really sucks. It just sucks.
Yeah.
Like instead of God, like if Tatum didn't have that injury, you could potentially be looking at OKC winning it this year. Maybe the Celtics retool. They're healthy next year, and those teams playing the championship. And isn't that cool? Two
Yeah.
great teams going at it. Like, isn't that what you want in the NBA? Like two great teams going at it, maybe for multiple seasons potentially. It's or at least always there that they could meet in the finals. It's a great storyline. It's great for the league. You're not. That's gone. That's gone now.
Mhm.
And um,
And
not
they'll,
just gone
they'll
because of the injury. It's just gone in general.
I think there'll be evidence of it in the NBA Finals viewership if the Knicks don't make the finals, which it looks like very likely they're not going to. Even though it's going to be really great basketball, me and you are going to enjoy it.
Yep.
The ratings are going to be down, and so they may be looking at the CBA like, how do we get out of this
I'm not so
eventually?
sure if it's the Knicks. It's going to be really great basketball, but it would be great basketball from the Thunder side.
No, I'm saying when the Pacers make it, it's going to be great
Yeah,
entertainment.
yeah.
But I think the ratings are going to be down. If the Knicks make it, the ratings aren't going to be down. Um, and yeah, I agree. I think it is entertaining to have great teams competing for championships. And we're not going to get that anymore. I agree, Jim.
We should be talking about style of play, like you and I argued on the other day in the text. We should be talking about do they need to change their style of play, or what roster iterations they need to make to get back to this point next year, because it's not all over. Um,
But
but
it's not done.
now those conversations, like they don't even matter.
They don't.
They don't even matter. It's fucking stupid. And that's where I am on this. Mike, quick next question for you as I
Yeah.
transition out of my anger. Um, let's say the Knicks lose tomorrow night, and
Yeah.
it's really evident. It should be evident to anyone right now that you can't really win with playing Kyle Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson together.
Mhm.
Defensively, you can win a lot of games, but once you get to this point of the team season with really good offensive players, those two can't be on the floor together. And their worst ratings are when they're on the floor together. Would you be the Knicks tomorrow or Saturday? Would you call the Bucks and say,
Of
okay,
course I would.
which one of these guys do you want and build a package around it for Giannis?
Of course I would. I mean, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't be which one do you want? It would be Carl Anthony Towns.
Okay. But
Yeah.
what if the Bucks come back and say, well, I don't want Towns? I think they would want Towns, by the way. But what if they came back and said, we don't want Towns, we want Brunson and these other players?
I'd take a look at it, obviously. But
Uh,
I think with Brunson and Giannis, you're competing to win a championship. I think with Towns and Giannis, I don't know if you are.
well, you
Uh,
could move Towns afterwards for a lot of good players to build around Giannis. I think Giannis with OG and a few of these other players that they have on there right now, even without Brunson, and if you're able to keep Towns. I think Giannis and Towns can work together, by the way. I just think Giannis is that type of player.
I
Um,
think Cleveland should go after Giannis. I think Cleveland should offer Evan Mobley. That's what I think.
Towns'
And then,
defensive liabilities wouldn't be bad with Giannis.
yeah,
I would do, if I was the Knicks, I would do everything in my power and give them what they want to get that. Because with the other players you have there with Giannis, I think you are the favorites in the East.
yeah. Let me ask you this: if the Celtics like decide we don't care about the spending and we're going to try to just stay good, would you entertain Jaylen Brown and draft picks? To be honest,
Yeah, I don't. I think they'd want, like, for the reasons I don't think they'd want Brunson. I don't think they'd want Brown. I think, yeah, absolutely, sure,
yeah.
yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean,
Um, yeah, I mean, Giannis is Giannis. Yeah,
I put the call in if I'm Brad. Like if I had the freedom to do that, I'd be putting the call in. And you know, how many draft picks do you need to be attached to this to make this happen? Because in 2 years, if you have Giannis and Jayson Tatum together, I mean, come on.
yeah. I mean, like, if you were able to, I maybe Milwaukee built a couple of their contracts. If you're able to, if it's White and Brown or something, a package around that for Giannis. Yeah, like, how can't you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and obviously for Boston, it makes a ton of sense.
But would Giannis want to come here? Because I think that's going to be part of it. I think Milwaukee's going to do right by Giannis.
Yeah, he
Or
wants
would
New
you?
York or like Miami or LA,
Well, does he
right?
want to? Does he not even that? Like, I think if Tatum's healthy, he's more than happy to come here.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, does he want to go through potentially the same situation he had in Milwaukee? He could have here.
that's true. That's
That's the
true.
reality of it. And, like, I don't. He's getting older. I don't think he would. But the Celtics would be the perfect team to make an offer. Not the perfect team for Milwaukee, Giannis, but the perfect team to make an offer because the ages of their players and whatnot. Houston's another team that you have to think, and they can certainly put an offer together for Giannis.
Yeah.
Um, they can, but it would come down to, um, I think, part of where he'd want to go, and I think New York would be certainly somewhere he'd be interested in going.
I mean, if I'm Minnesota, I'm trying to figure it out too. Like there should be a Giannis sweepstakes. It's a matter of if owners want to pay.
I think
If
it's
they
a
want
matter
to
of
pay
owners.
draft capital and they want to pay money.
It's a matter of where owners want to pay and where he's okay going.
Yeah. I mean, him and Anthony Edwards together would be interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know,
I mean, him on the Clippers could be very interesting too.
yeah. Yeah, certainly. I mean, any team in the NBA. I mean, Golden State, right? He's been rumored to go to Golden State and play with Steph.
Yeah, Golden State would have to get really creative to figure that out
Yeah.
because I don't think there's anything on that roster that would entice Milwaukee.
But after seeing Dallas trade Luca for nothing, who knows?
Yeah, but I think that's a one-off. That's a one-off. This isn't Milwaukee's not stupid. They made some decisions. All the decisions they made were desperate for Giannis to keep this
Yeah.
a contender and keep him there. So,
Well,
like,
the Chris Middleton injury is what derailed that franchise. If
yeah,
he
they could
never
have
if
won a
he never
second
got
championship. Yeah,
yeah, if he
yeah.
never got hurt, he'd still be balling out right now.
Let me ask you one other basketball question, just about these playoffs and the finals. Um, what's the best way to play against OKC? Because you think it's, typically you want multiple drives, multiple passes, but I feel like that's death versus OKC because of the way they get their hands and they attack certain players. Like, is this go fast, get your first best shot, and hope for the best?
I think you have to turn him over a lot.
But
That's
how
what
do
I think.
you, okay, but how do you attack them in the half court, I guess is more specific.
You do what Denver tried to do. OKC gives up the corner threes early.
You got to shoot
Um,
a lot of threes, right?
you have to. I, I I think you have to average about 43 point attempts per game.
Maybe
Unfortunately,
even more. Yeah, yeah.
that's what they want you to do, though.
I think
Um,
what they really want you to do is start that way, miss, and think you have to attack him differently, and then they just like if you try to drive against like everyone was saying, Anthony Edwards, he needs to attack, he needs to attack. Game 5, he attacked, and it was ugly.
Yeah.
It was ugly.
Yeah, I mean OKC's so good defensively. I really see Halliburton and Pascal Siakam having a hard time in this series coming up.
I would think so too. The only thing that Halliburton has going for him is he doesn't turn the ball over.
Yeah, which is huge, but I mean Siakam's gonna have to hit corner threes.
Yeah. And
It's
that's
gonna,
one thing Indy doesn't do is they don't shoot a lot of threes.
no, that's why I like them. That's why I like watching them.
Same, but does this I think their style I last week I was thinking Indy could give them a real run. Then I'm watching OKC and I'm like, oh God, actually like this style plays right into what OKC wants you to do.
I think OKC is like one of the best defensive basketball teams to ever play in the NBA.
They're great. Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the level that SGA is playing at right now, too, offensively, like I don't give anybody a shot to go beyond like 5 games.
What they do is what the Celtics did so well in the championship last year on offense, where they would hunt a bad player.
Yeah.
OKC defensively
There's not a bad
hunts
player.
bad offensive players, or not even bad. Just guys they feel like they can take advantage. I've never seen anything like it. Like okay, Nemhat, you're a good player, but we want you to have the ball because we're fucking predators and we're coming for you. And it's like I think you're right. I think it's getting the corner three. They almost give that to you a little bit, and it's I think you need to shoot like 40 to 50 threes and shoot close to like 37%.
I don't think Indiana can do that.
I don't think so either. Actually, I think the Knicks are probably more built to do that than.
I think so too. Like I don't think
Yeah.
Indiana has the shooters. I just don't. Like I know Miles Turner, Toppin, they can hit some. Nimhard can hit some, but that's not the way they play.
No, and Jokic
I-
could
and
draw
not
so
quite
much
honestly,
attention that guys will get open.
if I'm Indiana, I'm going into that series. The way we play got us here. I'm not changing shit up because I'm scared of OKC because it's not going to work. I'm going to go down playing the way I play.
See,
Like,
I think that mentality is fine until you get down 2-0.
yeah, well, they got to make adjustments.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be trying to play I mean, maybe OKC can't defend the way. I don't know if anybody can defend Indiana the way they play. Let's find out and see. I will say this though about Indiana: this franchise has a history of choking against the New York Knicks. So let's see if they win. That's all I'm gonna say. You know, we had the picture of Reggie Miller doing the choke sign against the Knicks. That was the last time somebody did that, and they blew that series. Last year they won in New York, but people got hurt. I think that was a big part of it. Indiana's they gotta close this out, man. They gotta win Game 6. Don't go to Game 7.
Well, I feel like if you watch how a series plays out, you have like the Brunson game in Game 1, and they Knicks didn't take advantage and they lost.
Yep.
Game 2, the Pacers controlled the entire game and won. Game 3, they controlled the entire game until the end and lost. Game 4, they controlled the entire game. This was bound to be a Knicks game. Game 5.
Yep.
This doesn't feel like a team that chokes. It feels like they learned a lot from last season's Eastern Conference Finals, where they choked, away Game 1, and they choked away other games down the stretch. We'll see. I guess anything's possible. I expect it to be a close game, but everything I've seen so far is Indiana's the better team. They went 3 games in a row with outplaying them for 11 to 12 quarters, and it could have potentially been a sweep, but it wasn't. So it's 3-2.
All right.
All right. Anything you want to add before we go? First part of season 6.
Yeah. I just actually no. We can. This was a long pod, so we can hold off on it. All right. Good pod, Jim.
All right. Yeah, really sexy. We'll see you later.
Yeah.